Dragan, how are you feeling today?
Good.
That was the expected question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm feeling actually quite well. I had a good start of the day, and I was really looking forward coming here.
Okay.
So it was, it's nice to be on the other side of the mic, not the one asking questions. So
Yes.
that's where I feel more comfortable with.
Okay.
But I'm feeling good. I had a very productive day, which is strange sometimes,
Yes.
especially for Monday. And I feel very optimistic today.
Right. Nice to hear.
Hmm.
So I had also had quite a productive Monday because usually Mondays for me tend to be quite productive. I think I tend to be more productive on Tuesdays for a reason.
Hmm.
Maybe because I'm still picking up, but because I write my journal on Sunday. On Monday I'm quite geared up because there has been some sort of closure to my week. Then I can focus on restarting the week.
You're doing pretty well with the journaling.
Yep, I've been journaling for over 2 years. I do it
Hmm.
every Sunday. Um, Something that I've learned about the journaling is that it helped me celebrate the wins and notice the small wins actually, because
Hmm.
sometimes we go day in, day out doing relatively similar things and sometimes don't pause and reflect. So, for example, yesterday I reflected a bit on the coaching sessions that I had last week because since last week, since we started the year again, I've had quite a surge. It was planned, but
Hmm.
quite a surge of coaching sessions, and there were some of them were quite a bit challenging because sometimes you have to really. And I revert the question to you because you're in this industry as well. Sometimes you're in a situation where you feel that you as a coach or as a counselor of sorts, there is a limit to what you can
Hmm.
do, say, and support the person. Sometimes you need the help of other professionals to support
Yes.
the individual, and that's a very fine
Hmm.
line. I'm quite careful with that. Um, so last week I had two cases which needed the support of other two professionals, and it's always a bit of a sensitive topic to navigate with the client.
Hmm. It is. And the feeling when you feel just like I have nothing much to do here. I mean, not more, and it's not my area. So
Hmm.
having the clear boundaries in coaching is very important. Unfortunately, this is something I see quite often overstepped by people who are either not professionally trained, they're not accredited, they don't follow any code of ethics, or people that are eager to deliver more without realizing their limitations.
Yes.
And that's a bit dangerous. Kind of, I worked quite a lot in therapeutic environment before working on my
Yes.
own, and I've learned the boundaries as a concept is extremely important.
Hmm.
And as coaches, we have to tell our clients when we are not able to help.
Yes.
I think that's quite important in life, not only in coaching.
Hmm.
Just listen, this is not something I can help you with. Instead
Hmm.
of jumping and trying to help with something that you're not ready
Hmm.
and you don't know how, and you can cause more damage than
Hmm.
actually provide any help.
What is your perspective of coaching? So, for the listeners who are new to coaching or haven't heard about coaching, what is your understanding?
So one thing I know for sure that coaching is not the miracle help and the miracle tool and the very miracle intervention that you find everyone talking about.
Hmm.
Coaching is a nice concept, is a great concept actually, that is working quite well if you know how to do coaching and if you have the right person to coach, which I mean like someone who is ready to be coached.
Hmm.
And it can do a lot of good, but again with the limitations, because sometimes you need to mentor, sometimes you need to
Yes.
train, sometimes you need to let the person rest
Hmm.
and they grow.
Yeah.
Because when you water a plant, you just water the plant and then you let it absorb the water.
Yes,
So you
definitely.
can't pour water constantly. And in coaching can be very dynamic, and people can um, get a lot of insights and a lot of gains and a lot of water.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if they don't have time and space to absorb this
Yes,
water and get all the nutrients from what they did, the chances
definitely.
are they're going to fail.
Hmm.
So
Definitely.
it's not a miracle intervention That's what I can tell you. But it's if it's used properly and with the right context, can do miracles.
Something that I hear a lot is the similarities between therapy and coaching. And I'm pretty sure that we can understand why there is the overlap as well. And I always, the way I explain is that coaching is in most cases very much forward thinking, whereas therapy tends to be tends to work in retrospect and then build your way up to the present moment so that we can take it forward further as well.
I again, this is depending on the coach and depending on the concept the coach is using, the model. So some coaching really goes back and unwraps certain things, which are coaching topics. You know, therapy can work with pathology, can work with clinical stuff, which is not the job of the coach, unless it's specifically trained and they're doing some coaching that is in the right context.
Yes.
Because I know people that are trained in this. But it's true. You acknowledge the past, you work with the present and focus on the future. Sometimes you need to focus on the present, depending what's going on. And we also have another misconception that comes quite often. Coaching is non-directive, which I don't believe a lot. Because if you start leading someone into a direction, that's the direction of coaching and the process, it already becomes directive.
Yes.
You don't direct towards a result. This is not good. It's not professional, but there is a direction. And sometimes in coaching, you're allowed to put some ideas on the table.
I think so, because the coachee is putting trust in you and you become sort of like an advisor. So maybe not explaining exactly something that to the coachee exactly as you would do it, or you can say so in some cases, but my style is that I would give my 2 cents to the coachee if they ask for it. Sometimes I ask permission. They listen. I have. Can I give you my 2 cents, for example? And I ask permission to do so. And some of the coachee, in most cases, people would accept. People seek the support of a coach for a reason. So the non-directional approach might hinder certain opportunity as well. It's not ethical to influence the person into something that they are not really comfortable with, and checking in with the person is, I think, really important. But then it becomes an ethical situation rather than the nature of.
This is a very natural kind of drive to do good, and sometimes it's very difficult to quiet yourself when you coach. That's a skill that you need to develop over the years. And that's where I see some new coaches, because I used to train coaches, you know, to get accredited and certified. They're finding it very difficult how to quiet their expert, their advisor mindset. And they just want to help, but by giving a suggestion, immediately jumping into some form of a practical approach, but then they cannot listen. They stop listening, because once your mind is busy with processing what you're going to give to your coachee, to your client, then you kind of shut your listening.
So you're listening to respond rather than to listen to absorb and to understand.
In most cases, and it happened to me, even sometimes it happens to me even nowadays, and I have to catch myself and stop myself from doing it. So much focus on what you want to give to your client as like a brilliant idea, then you realize, okay, I'm missing some other points, and how do I know that this is the most important thing for my client?
It's not as easy as it seems. So to sit down for 50 or an hour, for 50 or 60 minutes, to hear and to absorb, as you're saying, to absorb to what the client is saying and understand, see where they are at, so you can meet them where they are at as well, and then respond in a good way. Let's oversimplify it. Respond in a good way. It's not as easy as it seems. So it's not, you're not just there listening.
No, and this is usually the conversation I have with companies that purchase coaching. So you just sit there and you don't tell them anything, because, you know, I explained that I'm not going to teach them, I'm not going to show them PowerPoints, I'm going to give them brilliant ideas. I don't come with a magic bag of things. Although when I coach online, I have a magic wand next to me, which I
Okay.
stole from my daughter, and
Okay.
because there's a technique that I use very often. And I said, so why are we paying you?
Yeah.
I said to take out your employee from where you from where they are
Mm-hmm.
and work with them. Nowadays, I don't even call myself coach anymore.
Okay.
I call myself progress partner.
Okay.
I partner with people to make some form of progress, which is their progress,
Okay.
not mine. And I'm finding it much more interesting going like that. Sometimes I go completely unprepared to sessions. I know what we've discussed,
Yes.
but I go and say, okay, what's your expectation for today?
Mm-hmm.
What's your hope for our session today?
Mm-hmm.
And we start from there.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes there is no direct link from one session to another.
No.
So, as you know, sessions are usually either bi-weekly or monthly.
Mhm.
Sometimes they are every 3 weeks. It depends,
Yes.
but not less. Because if you have a session every week, I think it's too intense. I don't really advocate for that in most cases.
I have programs that I work weekly.
Okay.
So I was very against this.
Okay.
But then I discovered that other things happen, and depending on the need of the client.
Okay.
And there's another misconception. Usually it's like a short time bound, like few sessions. I
Yes.
have clients that I see for 2 years.
Okay. Every week.
No, maybe we started weekly
Every
and
week,
then we
and then you
moved it
reduce.
2 to 3 weeks gap.
It depends. It fluctuates, right? So sometimes
Mhm.
in life you might need a little bit more coaching. Sometimes you might need a little bit less as well.
Mhm.
So it's like the energy that you pointed out earlier. So the plant. Sometimes you need time
Mhm.
to process. Sometimes you need time a little bit away. So it's coaching can be quite flexible as well.
It is. Yeah, it's not rigid
Hmm.
process,
Hmm.
and that's why you have to go with the need of the client.
Definitely. So I like the fact that you've mentioned that you use different tools as well, because there are different tools to
Mhm.
coaching, and every coach brings their own personality to it as well. Some people like friendships, like therapists, of course, like other professionals. Sometimes you vibe with the person, sometimes you don't. So there are a lot of individuals
Mhm.
and a lot of tools that the coach might use as well.
And I found clients, coaches that I cannot work with,
Hmm.
or they can't work with me.
Hmm.
It's not their style that I'm the coaching style I have.
Hmm.
They need something different, and that's fine.
Does this happen usually in the debriefing session or in the first session?
Sometimes it happens maybe the first or the second session,
Hmm.
on the chemistry meeting, which
Yes.
I use
Yeah.
this term, more alignment meeting.
Yeah.
Um, Everything is nice and everyone wants to take a chance and work, but then maybe something else comes
Mm.
in their life,
Hmm.
or they had different expectations, and doesn't matter how much you try to clarify yours and their expectations, and you put the contract on table, like, okay, this is what we're going to do. People are
Mm.
afraid of sharing their expectations sometimes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Is it a question of taking accountability or being responsible for one's own progress?
It's hard work.
It is
Hmm.
definitely. Um,
And sometimes people just don't want to do this work.
okay.
They had the expectation that I'm going to do the work for them,
Okay.
or it's going to be easy, or we start unpacking something that they're not comfortable to challenge
Hmm.
because they're fully aware of why certain things are happening.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about clinical things. I'm talking about behavior, things that they they just keep doing because they're not ready to stop
Mm.
doing, or it serves a certain purpose to them.
Yes, definitely.
So that's and you spot this
They're just
quite
not ready
quickly.
to part ways yet
Yes,
with it.
yes.
But I think it's good that some people might need only a wake up call, in the sense that they might need someone to spot that
Hmm.
and let that rest for a while. Um, it feels that they have just become aware of it and they just need to process it in time. And you might not be the person to help them process it, but you might have been the person that helps them see it.
Hmm. Yeah, it happens quite often. you're actually putting this on the table for them,
Mm-hmm.
and you're sharing your observation
Mm-hmm.
and what you notice, or if you're using any data
Yeah.
or whatever. And then you have to leave it with them,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to take a decision. Just
Yes.
like the options, what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that some people come back after a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
Something happened, they're not really comfortable, they process it, they sleep
Yes.
on it for a period, or they see it coming again from somewhere else, and
Okay.
then they come back and say,
And
listen,
they
we need
connect
to
the
work
dots.
on this. Yes.
What brought you to coach and Dragan?
Wow. Um, when I decided to start coaching, this was 10 years ago. So I was on a crossroad. Should I start preparing to become a therapist,
Okay.
or I don't want to work in clinical stuff? And at the time, coaching in motor was quite exotic.
Mm-hmm.
And people that used to call themselves coaches were more mentors rather than coaches. And I found a course which was locally delivered, quite good. And I made the conscious decision that I am not going to go into therapy
How did you came to that conclusion?
because I used to work a lot with, I used to manage this big therapeutical service, and I had very good overview of what therapies and what kind of problems people bring.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid of the problems. I used to help organizations when there was trauma, and I worked quite a lot in trauma
Mm-hmm.
and suicide in my career in mental health. So I think I had enough
Okay.
from this, and I was being fascinated how um, people function within the working space and teams how they function as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I decided that probably this is
Mm-hmm.
my area. Although a couple of years ago, the therapy thought came into my
Okay.
mind again, and I was
Considering it.
that
Yeah.
close to apply for systemic therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Why systemic? Because it also relates to organizations.
Yes.
But then I decided I'm going to do something else,
Okay.
and hopefully this year it's going to be, I'll manage to start it. So
Good
that
luck
was
with that.
but that was the decision at that time. I started with coaching on the side, and 2021, I think October,
Okay.
I had to move on my own.
Okay.
In fact, I had to do this 2020
But of course, because of the pandemic, you might
on the
have been delayed.
13th of March. This was the day I wanted to resign.
Okay.
Yes. And this is the day when,
2020.
yes, 13th of March 2020, this is the day when everything closed.
It's
Yes.
right on the
Yes,
dot.
yes.
Um, what a coincidence. I mean, we share a very similar experience. So, when I finished my studies, I was at the crossroads as well. Should I go to therapy? Should I go to something else? I was always interested in organizational psychology.
Mhm.
So, that's something that always piqued my interest when I was at university. But most of my friends and family used to tell me that I think therapy suits you and you might be good for it as well. But there was always something that didn't resonate well enough with me. So what I decided to do at the time is to join an organization that specializes in mental health and just to see whether I'm cut out for that job or not. And I've got my answer.
Mhm.
Therapy is not on. It hasn't been under my radar.
Mhm.
I have an appreciation for it, of course, but it's not something that I would like to pursue so far in life because you can never say
Mhm.
never, right? But it's not something I would like to pursue. There are some approaches which I more likely inclined to, such as systemic family therapy,
Mhm.
for example, because similar to I enjoy seeing the dynamics between more than one individual.
Mhm.
And I enjoy connecting the dots in that sort of way. Um, and I would say recently delved into or tapped into more into the coaching aspect of things
Mhm.
because organizational psychology does give you some tools in that regard, but obviously not fully into coaching.
Mhm. I've seen many people joining the same organization and changing their minds
Yes,
because it's not for everyone working
yes,
in mental health and a clinical setting.
yes,
Sometimes things can be quite heavy,
yes.
and you need to be ready to
Hmm.
to delve into this. I mean, I've attended therapy myself. It was a very interesting experience, and therapy is also very helpful if you want to grow, so you don't
Yes.
need to have a problem to attend therapy. Um, and even in coaching, I use a lot of therapeutic approaches.
Mm-hmm.
And I've trained myself on different therapeutic approaches,
Yeah.
which you can find the therapeutic model and then the coaching model, which is very similar but with the boundaries.
Can you give just an example? Because
I,
obviously we can understand each other, but the
for
listeners.
example, Gestalt.
Yeah.
There's Gestalt coaching,
Mm-hmm.
and I had for many years I had a Gestalt supervisor,
Okay.
Gestalt coach and therapist for supervising me. Solution focus, which comes from solution focus therapy.
Okay.
So there's CBT
Mm-hmm.
coaching as well, which I don't use. Actually, I do use a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and there are probably others as well
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
people use in coaching. But these are the three main that
Yes.
and systemic when I work with
With
teams.
teams.
Yes, which is so you can see the roots are coming
Yes.
from the same place.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned earlier as well, it depends on your nature as a coach as well. Obviously, with your experience in the mental health realm, there's obviously something that you draw back from that experience as well. So even though you might be um, more practical or solution focused, for example, there are therapeutic elements that have shaped
Hmm.
your coaching style as well.
I mean, the amount of clients I had with underlying mental health problem. I'm not saying mental illness. I'm saying just problem.
Mm-hmm.
Is incredibly big,
Mm-hmm.
especially people at. I've seen people at a senior level. Probably anxiety quite comes often,
Mm-hmm.
and they are not seeing it. So my experience in mental health helps me to
Mm-hmm.
show this to them and then tell them where they can get help
Mm-hmm.
and find a way to work around
Yes.
by also exploring how it affects what they do
Mm-hmm.
as well. And recently, a lot of ADHD is coming into the picture. So this understanding
Yes.
is always nice to
Mm-hmm.
have, but I'm not a mental health coach,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't coach for mental health
Okay.
problems. No, no, I'm not trained. I don't have any experience like that, and I don't want to go there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my area, but it comes one way or another. Mental health comes into the picture
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of burnouts and stuff like that.
Definitely. The beauty about these things is that there's a lot of areas to specialize in and to give it your own
Mm-hmm.
to give it your own twist with responsibility. I mean, is that you bring in your own personality, what you like and what you don't like, and also your experience as a coach. So again, you some a coach would develop their own style to it
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Dragan, you asked me when we were corresponding with one another. You asked me about whether there was anything that you would like to prepare for the podcast, and that I've mentioned many times. There's no specific agenda or specific questions that um, that I asked. So even though I have the tablet in front of me, it doesn't contain any questions.
It's probably watching the clock.
Yes, not really. I usually, when we have the live audience, we have questions coming in.
Okay.
So I just switched it on just in case the people that are here today have any questions for us. But I do have a question for you. I asked you about whether you'd like to share a story or some stories that inspired and shaped your life. What was the one? When I asked you the question or when you read the question, what story came to mind first?
It wasn't one story.
Okay.
Let's put it this way. But something that I reflected recently. I don't know why it just came into a
Yeah.
conversation. I remember when I moved to Malta 19, 18 and a half years ago. And I was still trying to find my way because I was here temporary. It was a family move, but I came for 3 months and I'm here so
You
many
stayed.
years now. Yes, I kind of didn't want to go back. I met someone who told me you will never do any trainings and in Malta. You're never going to deliver training sessions in Malta. And I was very much surprised. How? So you're not Maltese? And the market here is very small, and you'll be probably like you try to find some other job. And I actually had another job for about 2.5 years
Okay.
before I was given the opportunity to to start delivering trainings and later on coaching. But this is quite interesting how people used to see 18 years ago Malta as a small place, and me coming as a foreigner, um, someone that will not be able to achieve anything here. I'm not saying succeeds, and because success is very, very subjective.
Okay. So
But
you're sorry for you were already set to do training here
I
in
used to
Malta.
do training
Okay.
before,
Okay.
so that was kind of the job I was looking for.
Okay.
And I thought no, and I didn't take it as no. I just said okay, fine, and let me find
Yes.
my place here. Let me see if I'm going to stay, because initially I came for 3 months. My wife was staying for 2 years,
Okay.
and then things started building one after each other. But people should not give up on their dreams
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and what they like to do. Because I started doing recruitment, which is a good job if you like it.
Yes.
For me, it was just a job.
Yes.
So I had to mix, how to say, mix success
Mm-hmm.
there. And then when I moved to Richmond, it was a different story. I
Mhm.
had a big untapped area which I needed to quickly catch up with because I
Yes.
had no experience in mental
Yeah.
health before that. And but I had a great opportunity to develop what I want.
And is that experience which initiated the coaching passion as
Yes,
well?
yes.
Okay.
At that time, I didn't know about coaching. It was, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I knew about executive coaching, which was a very expensive
Yes.
thing, only for senior people. Now it's different,
Mm-hmm.
and
It's a
it
little
was
bit more
getting
accessible.
different. There's the term democratization of coaching. Yes, that's
Fair
the proper
enough.
term. And I slowly worked out my way to where I wanted to be
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, the first year I started delivering some trainings, and then I developed a whole team around this.
Mm-hmm. Why did that comment stuck with you?
Um, I forgot about this comment, and it never made me angry,
Okay.
this comment. But I remembered this recently when I was reflecting on the years I did, the amount of people that I've trained through various experiences, and now coaching locally and abroad. And I'm not showing off; it's just my job. This is
Mm-hmm.
my passion. And I remember this person because I don't remember anyone in my life telling me this is not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be able to achieve anything.
Okay. You had to find a Maltese person telling you so.
I think I don't think the person had any negative
Okay.
intention. I think he wanted to save me from
Okay.
disappointments
All
because
right.
he's a nice person. I follow what he's doing across the years, and he's very successful.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there was a bad intention there.
Okay.
No, I don't think for sure. It's just I remember that sticking with me, and sometimes people don't read the intention properly.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're someone who is more sensitive and
Yes,
you
definitely.
seek external validation, that can be devastating for your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a dream for me to deliver coaching. It was that's what I wanted to do,
Yes.
kind
I
of.
have no other option. That's what I wanted to do. So,
I
I don't know
probably
option in the
had other
sense.
options. Yes, yes. I think I always had different options, but I decided to take this path, and that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, sometimes when we try to do good to someone by protecting them from,
Mm-hmm.
giving them advice, or maybe unwanted advice,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want advice at that time. I mean, I wasn't seeking advice, I was
Yes.
seeking job. That wasn't the thing. And we can scar something
Yes.
that we don't understand. So we need to be kind with people.
There's a way and the way of saying things. I mean,
Hmm.
the person would have meant well, and that's totally fine. It's very difficult to know because some people need a hard slap
Hmm.
sometimes to wake up, and some people just need a gentle tap. So not, it's very hard to tell what the person would need um, in order for them to make the right move in the right
Hmm.
direction. So sometimes that might work, sometimes it doesn't. Um, Personally, I always think, okay, how can I say it in a way that I'm being mindful of the person's feelings, but at the same time, getting through the message that I want to get through at the end of the day. So I'm always quite I wouldn't say empathic, understanding or at least appreciative of the other person's feelings and thoughts on the other side as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather invoke a question or try to have a discussion over it.
Mm-hmm. You know, for example, when I step in the coaching role, some people really need to be pushed, and they want to be pushed,
Yes.
and they ask for this. Other people need a gentle approach, but I wouldn't know until I test. I ask questions. I get to know the person.
Yes.
You can't really go full
No.
force on someone, even if you have the best intention.
Yes. You have to build that trust because sometimes in coaching, by the time you develop a relationship with the person, and you can get away with saying certain things in a way to help the person, of course. But you can say things by the time you start calling the person's bluff. And you're saying, but listen, Dragan, last time you told me this. How come today you're saying this, for example? And you can say it in a very direct way that the person actually accepts it and receives it well. But you have to have worked on building the trust before. So this would not happen on the first session, for sure. But it might happen on any other session. But by the time you build a relationship with the person, you might get away with being a little bit tough on the individual as well.
Interesting, because I've seen managers doing this. They kind of have the tough love
Yes.
approach, but are not very mindful about the person on the other side, and that caused a lot of damage.
Yes.
And then the other person obviously started responding one way or another, displaying some form of behavior, which, was kind of, they were in disagreement with this. And then they come and say, this person has challenging behavior.
Yes. I hear that most when we discuss generation gaps as well. So it's always the younger generation who's at fault as well sometimes.
Now it's Gen Z.
Yes.
Before that was something else. I've been working this year 25 years.
Okay.
Shows how old I am. And I've been following, and so many things changed and come back again. And I always used to see, the next generation.
Yes.
Now sounds like an old person. But now it's Gen Z. They're not working like us. They don't want. I'm like, okay, when you stepped where you're like the other generation, no, probably no.
Yeah.
And your older managers used to say, the new generation are, not as good as we are. They're not used to. I think it's the same thing, but there are things that make this particular generation a little bit more challenging than the others, because they know what they want, kind of. For me, they just want more for themselves, and for their own good, and they don't stick with companies, excuse my French, bullshit sometimes. This is great and that's for the good of everyone, but actually there's a lot of commercial interest behind that. So most of them look for their own good, which I don't dislike. It's not bad.
Yeah.
But then I think they'll become a little bit more mindful that you can't apply this on every aspect of your life.
I think there's a blend to this in the sense that being individually driven and motivated to do things for your own good, I think it's good, but I'm a firm believer that there's always a price, in the sense that there's always a price to pay, and I don't mean it in a negative way.
No.
In life there's an equal exchange. You get some, you lose some. In order to get that, if you're self-driven, you might be, without knowing, isolating yourself. And what I notice as well from my coaching experience is that when people are hyper successful or they've accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, they feel alienated and isolated, because human beings are creatures of a group.
Social animals.
We are social animals, and I think we might forget it, or not acknowledge it in our lives and in some areas. Or some people tend to do so more frequently than others, and then it hits. And when it hits and you look around and you see no one, that's a very tough feeling.
I mean, we were talking about system.
Yeah.
System. So we function in a system.
Yes.
Whatever we do, we function in a system. Being your family, being your friends, being work,
Yeah.
school, whatever
Yep.
you are, and taking care of yourself and knowing exactly what you want to do, but not respecting what's going on around you
Yeah.
and applying a very transactional model to what you do
Hmm.
is not healthy. And that's why I'm saying that probably we're going to see some balance, because a lot of people are going to find it difficult through the
Yeah.
difficult side of this experience, that it's not going to function like that.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter that we have AI or whatever, and we're getting technological advance, we're still social
Yeah,
animals.
we're still.
Yes. If you think about our evolution, is not that advanced.
Hmm.
I mean, technology is much more evolved than us, but
Yes.
we as
Yes.
humans, we still worry about traffic.
Yes.
You know, it's quite, and we have the same experience as if we're threatened with a weapon
Yeah.
when we're stuck in traffic. So, from evolutionary
Yes.
point of view, that's
Yes.
nonsense,
Yes.
because
And
it's killing us.
we're still triggered by certain things as well, and
Yes.
the same things that triggered people 100 years ago, 200 years ago, are still the same triggers today as well. So if we are without a job,
Yeah.
our focus changes from making money to trying to find a way to get food and water, right?
Hmm.
So it's like going back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs in a way. So
Yes.
it's the same, because we're driven by the same
Hmm.
needs and life needs in the sense.
If you think about Maslow, it's one of the most used cliches in management, in leadership, in
Yeah.
development, but it's actually one of the most relevant,
Yes. Most people hate it for a reason.
because it's used a lot and everyone
It
used
is.
to refer to it.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
they used to refer to Maslow, 15 years ago. But I notice even with my work with clients,
Mm-hmm.
and even before, I mean, I used to do what is called psychological first aid, not mental health first aid,
Mm-hmm.
psychological
Okay.
first aid, which is a disaster-based thing. And I'm looking again at the LA fires at the moment,
Okay.
and this is an intervention designed for that kind of experiences. When someone is passing through that kind of experience, you're going back to the basics:
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
food, shelter,
Yes.
warmth, safety.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start thinking about anything else. But we always go back to this.
Yep. So it as you said, the technology might have changed or improved around us, but we have still remained the same. Then
Yeah.
in a way, we feel we think that we achieved grander
Mm.
as humans, but in reality, we didn't in a way. So
Mm.
we changed the environment around us, but we didn't change internally. I feel, at least I
No.
believe.
I mean, go to LA and tell everyone about AI
Mm-hmm.
and speak to someone who just lost their house
Mm-hmm.
and their memories and everything. And then you see what response you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And that will give you a very good kind of, it will align
Yes.
your vision with where life actually goes
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, despite of AI connectivity being part of the global
Yes.
village or whatever call it,
Yes.
all these things we hear. But then when we come to our safety and basic needs,
Mm-hmm.
we all go to the same. That's what makes us the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what makes us humans.
Yes. Um, Dragan, you mentioned a very important point, something that I've never thought of: um, mental health first aid and psychological first aid.
Mhm.
What's the difference?
So mental health first aid is first aid that you help people who are passing through a mental problem.
Okay.
So we're talking about depression, anxiety, kind of maybe some crisis. Psychological first aid is developed mainly for disaster-based intervention. So you have triage. You look at you're not going to look into a depression. You're going to look into how to prevent trauma from developing,
Okay.
how to make the person feel safe and comfortable, and how the person to start getting back to their senses and finding their strengths and resiliences. Because in times like that, you need some time to regain your sense and strengths and
Mm-hmm.
start believing in what's going on. So the models are different.
Okay.
The method first aid is very much focused on helping a particular person
Mm.
that is passing through a problem to reach out to help. The other one is giving help
Okay.
directly. And although sometimes the terms are used as one
Interchangeably,
thing,
yes.
it's actually very different.
No, I rarely heard about psychological first aid, to be
Mhm.
honest. So it's not something that I've
I
heard
don't think
very
many
much.
people are trained here on
Mm,
this. I had a very keen interest in disasters,
mm,
and I participated in the aftermath of a couple of traumatic incidents in
okay.
the country.
What's your experience on that?
Mm, depends what you mean by
I mean,
experience.
what compelled you to support?
I have no idea,
Okay,
to be honest. I had no
because
idea.
most people would say I would go to South Africa, for example, to support
Hmm.
um, Missio, for example. But
I found it interesting. I found it as something you can give back to people.
okay,
I when I used to work with the team and with Richmond at the time, we found it as something missing
okay.
as well.
It was local or it was abroad as well?
No, something that happened here.
Okay, okay.
Yes, yes.
So people who have their, I don't know, house catching on fire, for
Mm,
example,
not
or
that, but we had
okay,
hijack of airplane. We had
okay,
incidents that happened. We had situations where there were incidents at the workplace. It was quite a,
okay,
um, and even sometimes just organizing what happens. It's also very helpful for people guiding organizations what to do,
okay.
how to do it.
Would COVID classify in that?
COVID was a very different experience.
Okay,
It's difficult to do psychological first aid
yeah,
because of no one knew what we're dealing with.
yeah,
So COVID was a very uncharted territory for us. Although I must say that professionally was very rewarding experience because we had to quickly learn new things
hmm,
and adapt to the new needs of people, and accelerated a lot of processes in terms of learning and offering new
hmm,
services. That
hmm,
was quite an interesting experience. But I know people who were very traumatized from this. For me, it was a period that I could rest, spend time with my daughter, with my wife, with
yes,
my family, enjoy a little bit less
yeah,
going around, and actually spend a lot of time with my team
okay,
at that time because we were not going around and we used to meet every day online for. But I know, and that's my experience, which is not relevant to everyone.
hmm,
For many people, that was a very traumatic experience.
hmm.
You know,
That's why it came to mind
mhm.
when it comes.
We're still dealing with the aftermath of COVID.
Okay,
I think even now, because there are a lot of calls for people to go back to work physically,
hmm,
and a lot of changes are happening in this. And some people really had difficult time, and it took them quite a lot of time to gain back traction
okay,
and to do things in life. And I'm not talking those who were really traumatized by his experience because they were sick or they lost someone, because that happened as well
hmm,
in a lot of
hmm,
countries. Um, so I think we're going to be scarred for quite some time from
hmm,
this experience that even when we were preparing to work in, trauma and disasters, pandemic was probably the least thing we relate in
yes.
Europe.
I think it's the youngsters who have had it the worst, I believe,
Hmm.
is the extreme. So the youngest and the eldest,
Yes.
I would say. Um, the eldest for I think obvious reasons, anything related to healthcare, loneliness as well. But the youngest, I mean, in terms of schooling and socialization
Hmm.
as well, I think it's a bit of a sort of the dark ages in a
Yes.
way.
Yes. And
Um,
we're going to still, you know, I don't think all the experiences of COVID are studied properly.
mm,
But what we noticed at the time by some studies that we're doing at work at this time were that spike of anxiety, which is quite normal,
yeah,
to
yeah.
be honest. I mean, it wasn't anything that you wouldn't
Mm,
expect because people are worried, future is not very clear,
yeah.
there's a lot of loss that we were dealing with.
Hmm,
So that was, but again, I'm still curious to, see a bit more research of the
hmm,
effect because we were dealing with another pandemic before that of loneliness
mm.
that was growing even locally.
Okay.
And outside is much bigger, but in Malta is growing.
Which was the most dominant demographic in that area?
Uh, a lot, a lot of people. People think usually foreigners.
Mm,
There's a different cluster, and they have different kind of loneliness. But people that are here with their families and
okay.
still feel lonely. maybe they don't have time to socialize that much. They have um, moved from one village to another, so they're not close to family anymore. Because from what I know about Malta, is people used to live quite a like family-orientated life. Now, if you move from Melilla to Marsa Scala, that's a whole island between
Yes,
you.
definitely.
Although it's only 27 kilometers,
Yes.
but
It
that's
makes a whole lot of difference. The
yes.
community, um, the culture as well changes a little bit. So there are changes, and you can notice. But once you're living in that community, it makes a difference as well.
Going back to the social animals.
Yes. Again, how is it feeling being on the other side?
Nice. I'm feeling good. I mean, I enjoy talking about certain things,
Right.
and I think we've turned quite a lot about coaching,
Yes.
which is nice.
Yeah.
Because as I mentioned, there are a lot of misconceptions about coaching, and I don't want people to think that this is something that
Definitely.
works for everyone. But it's good to mention other type of I call them interventions, although it's not the right
Yes.
thing for people to explore.
And sometimes, I mean, I like to see my podcast as an educational platform in most cases. So usually the guests as myself tend to have a bit of an intellectual conversation, if you may. So it's rather shedding more knowledge and insights on the same. Because I've had a couple of guests who are coaches as well, and everyone gives it a different twist. And
Yes.
it's nice to see that there is variety as well, and you see what resonates with you as well. But on continuing on this, you do hold webinars as well with other professionals in the
Yes,
field.
I do, and I like to collaborate with people um, because I also feel lonely sometimes. I work in my area. I have my clients that I work. They give me a lot of satisfaction. But I'm used to work in a team, and I used to manage a team, and that was probably one of the best times of my professional life. So I partner up with other people. We do small gigs. We get interesting experiences together. The beauty of the way we live now and technology is that I can partner up with people on the other side of the ocean,
Yeah.
and we can do something together. And that's something that we couldn't do before that much. See, that's one of the good things that
Yes.
happened
Oh,
after
technology.
COVID. Not that we didn't have the technology, just people are more afraid of doing it.
Yes. Yes.
But even locally, I collaborate with some colleagues, and I try to increase my collaboration more and more with different organizations and people, because working on your own kind of boring sometimes. And sometimes I have a lot of clients and I don't have time to do anything. Then I have quiet time
Yes.
when it's about reading, preparing, reaching out to people, and that's quite difficult sometimes because
Yes.
if you don't have a daily job, it can be boring. I'm never bored.
Yes.
And I'm very good with structure of working, so I have working hours, and if I don't have to work, I don't sometimes, but then I catch up on other days. So
No, same here. I mean, at Endeavor, we are quite a good team. So I have people who I collaborate with directly. I enjoy working with others as well because one we learn from one another as well,
yes.
and our knowledge, each and every one of us, is limited. And again, I don't mean it in a negative way, but there are special areas that interest us the most, and the areas that don't interest us might be the passion of the others as well. So it's good to combine that and to provide the solution that it's right for the client as well.
Yes. Yes.
So with Endeavor, that's what I've tried to build over the last year. It's a team of people who can work together to give a solution to the client as well. So very similar to you, I enjoy working in a team. I don't mind working on my own, but having a team is very nice.
Also,
Um,
it makes
as
you
well.
complete.
It does, and um, it feels that you're learning as well. So I enjoy learning, and I'm quite curious as well. So I enjoy.
That's one of the things I noticed, that when I work alone, I'm not learning as much as I used to learn when I
Mhm.
used to work with other people.
Mhm.
And okay, I can self-reflect, I can check for feedback, I can speak to the clients, being an organization or individuals, but it's not enough. And you don't get a lot of ideas.
Yes, and if you're working with a company or an organization, especially if it's a large organization, large, I don't mean hundreds of people or even
Hmm.
70 people. It's quite a large organization for Maltese terms. And you have coaching sessions with some individuals. Sometimes it's good to manage that project with someone else
Hmm.
because you can bounce ideas or capture certain themes or things that we're hearing quite often
Mm.
as well in an organization. And that is beneficial for the client, for the
Yeah.
company, not the client. They are the
Hmm.
client ultimately, but for the organization as well,
Hmm.
because you can plug in the themes, what you've learning through the coaching as well. Obviously, it's important to note as well because I don't know who's listening ultimately to respect confidentiality.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that whatever is being said on during the coaching session you um, divulge anything to the organization, but you can mention a lot of things without mentioning names
Hmm.
or any singular individual. Because if Dragan just pointed out something, I wouldn't highlight it to the company unless it's super critical. But if Dragan, Daniel, and five other individuals mention the same thing, that needs to be flagged
Hmm.
to the organization as well. So that is what I
Yes.
mean, and it's good to clarify.
Yes. And you can mention trends. So
Yep.
I observe this quite often with your employees
Hmm.
when I coach like few people from an organization. This is a topic that comes quite often
Hmm.
with your employees.
Hmm.
I mean, you have to make something out of it.
Yes.
That's the but confidentiality is key, and I've been pressured by the so-called
Yes.
sponsors
Yes.
to go and tell them some details, and
Doesn't make sense. Doesn't
no.
make sense even for the business because
Hmm.
if the coach loses trust, so let us put the coach on a pedestal for a moment. If the coach is the most trusted individual in the organization, if you hire the third party coach and the coach becomes the most trusted individual, and the business or the people who engaged you as a coach are trying to get as much information from you, um, they are doing a disservice for the employees and for
Hmm.
themselves as well. Because if the employees lose trust in the coach, they are in a worse position than to where they started from
Yep.
initially when they hired you as the coach.
Hmm.
So and when I explain confidentiality, I explained in a very similar way to my clients as well, because it doesn't make sense to break confidentiality for no reason, even for the business.
Hmm. I mean, a good coach will work with the person to disclose what they want to disclose,
Hmm.
but not being someone in the middle,
Hmm.
the messenger between leadership and the employee, the coachee, the
Hmm.
client. That's not your job.
Hmm.
That's not what they're paying you for. And
Definitely.
that's what I always explain. You're not paying me to give
To
you
spy.
secrets. Yes.
Because sometimes you get the feeling I'm not a spy.
No.
I'm not spying on the employees.
Mhm.
It's not the scope.
And and companies have a very difficult time when we as coaches tell them my best interest is you getting what you want, but my best interest actually is the person I'm going to
Hmm.
coach. This is
Hmm.
my primary interest.
And the return on investment will become as a byproduct as well, because
Hmm.
if the coaching is getting what they need and want at the same time, the company is benefiting as well,
Hmm.
to some extent for sure. So ultimately, everyone is happy
Mm.
to some degree.
One of the most difficult cases is when, because of your coaching, and it happens from time to time, someone decide to leave
Yes,
the company,
yes,
and they blame the coach,
yes,
and then they don't realize sometimes that actually you made them a favor
yes.
because this person wasn't committed. It's not the coach who told the person to leave. I had last year a company like that. Someone left and they said, this is actually very good because now we know that he wasn't committed to stay with
Yes.
our senior team, and we're going to engage this person in a different way as a part time, but actually saved us money
Yes.
from this.
I thank you for sharing that, because sometimes you go through experiences and you feel that, am I the only one who's experienced
Oh.
this? Sometimes I was specifically hired to get rid of someone as well.
Mhm.
So it was like some sort of not an excuse, but a medium through which someone is let go.
Mhm.
It's a very, let's say, politically correct way of letting go of people
Mm.
as well.
I reject things like that.
The problem is that you wouldn't know always.
Yes, and you got to know, and then.
Yes, so when I got to know,
Mhm.
it was it was actually my one of my very first experience, even in business, which taught me a
Mhm.
lot. Um, this might I'll explain myself, but initially I was too trusting of the person on the other side. So I had a huge trust of the person hiring me, who was that, okay, they're paying money for my service. So because of that, I felt obliged to be to reciprocate the trust. And I wasn't. I was naive at that point in time as well, because I didn't ask the right questions, I would say.
Mhm.
Yes, the person on the other side, the client in this case, wasn't ethical in their approach, perhaps. But thanks to that, I've learned as well, because
Mhm.
there are something that's you have to learn through the hardships. Luckily for me, I've maintained a very good relationship with the coachee as well, which I'm still meeting them after they've left the company as well. So I wasn't really worried about it.
Mhm.
I've stopped very amicably with the person, with the client as well. But I've set a boundary. So listen,
Mhm.
if you're hiring me, this is how I roll. If you don't like how I roll,
Mhm.
it's okay. You can find someone else. And I was very chill about it.
That's where supervision comes into
Yep.
picture. Where actually you discuss case like that with your
Hmm.
supervisor, and you know that you are still in the ethical framework.
Hmm.
You apply, and that's why I always preach about having a supervisor. Um, Even if you're a leader, you need a supervisor.
Hmm.
I sometimes my coaching sessions turn into a supervision session, not
Hmm.
clinical, of course, but
Yes.
especially senior leadership.
Yeah.
They feel very lonely. They don't have space to discuss. So we ditch all goals and everything that coaching teaches you, that you have to have a goal, you have to achieve something, and turns into a conversation. And I don't give advices, but they find their own
Hmm.
directions. People sometimes need space to talk.
Yes. Very true. Very true. Very true. Dragan, anyway, we returned back to the
Let's circle
coaching.
back to the coaching.
And I got the feeling that you wanted to share something else.
I no, what I want to share is, I mean, there's something that goes to my mind very often recently, and I think we're going to see more and more of this. And I'm really curious how you see actually this, because
Okay, sure.
if you look at the world in a global manner, we have a lack of proper leadership in the world. And I'm not talking about politics and presidents and stuff like that,
Yes,
but kind of the quality of leadership is very low. So there are no good leaders. There's no
yes,
Mandela. There's no Martin Luther King Jr.
yes.
That people, we don't have them at the moment. And then we have, the rich people becoming leaders of the world, which is interesting. And I'm curious how this is going to start affecting
Hmm.
any form of leadership, even companies.
You ask me a
Uh
question? Okay.
huh.
It's a very interesting way of how you ask me the question. Anyway,
Hmm.
um, so one of my areas that I'm most passionate about, and actually my main focus, as Daniel's main focus and endeavor is leadership. And first of all, there are a lot of things said about leaders. One thing that I would like to say before I go to answering your question is that um, leadership is about the people.
Hmm.
So leadership is not about how to self-glorify yourself or to put yourself in a higher status than others, but it's all about the people, working with the people to achieve great things, whatever they might be. So it's about inspiring others by your behavior and code of conduct. So it's the cliche word leading by example, which is
Hmm.
very true. And if you have that, um, anyone can be a leader in a way, because leadership tends to be easy um, uh, on the fundamental levels. So if you want people to respect you, if you just have good manners, please, thank you, good morning, I'm leaving, have a nice day, have a nice evening. That only is already, you're already starting on the right
Mm-hmm.
path. I visit certain workplaces which the word good morning is also a taboo for some reason.
Yes.
So, how have a good day, or how are you doing today? These are difficult questions for some people. So, again, that community. So, that's what I wanted to start off with by leadership. Um, Secondly, I feel that what we discussed before is becoming a bit of a social issue as well. Is the individualization, the self-driven, is that um, I can't succeed on my own. I don't need others, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Which I don't think that is the case. No man is an island. That is another cliche drawn into the table, and will not happen if you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You can be successful in some areas, but if you are very, very successful, it means that you might have overstepped some people along the way.
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, we're going back to functioning in a system.
Hmm.
And when you have the global system or the bigger system dysfunctional, it starts affecting
Hmm.
a lot of people. And um, I'm really keeping an eye how that kind of lack of strong leadership and actually good example leadership, because
Hmm.
strong leadership can be seen from various perspectives. Someone being more dictatorship, it's a strong leadership.
Yes.
If you look into this, it's going to affect the way how we lead people,
Hmm.
because there are shifts happening because of new political, and I'm not into politics,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it's a system of a new political environment, and companies started acting different, and that's going
Hmm.
to bring a different kind of leadership.
Hmm.
So we're moving from ages of stability and kind of things were going
Hmm.
fine, not smooth, but fine, to a lot of disruption again.
Yeah.
That's something that really keeps me
It's the
thinking and
selfless
observing.
acts, I think. So if I compare a leader with a superhero,
Hmm.
let's pick up superhero or a Marvel superhero, anyone would you pick your favorite. Um, what distinguishes them apart from their superpower is the decision to do something good
Mm.
with it, which is most of the time selfless.
Hmm.
They're putting themselves into danger in order to protect the people, either the people that they love or humanity as a
Hmm.
whole. And that's very true in leadership as well, because in leadership, you have to have a vision which is not self centered, it's selfless, it will benefit multiple people around you. Now, the level of the impact, how much people will impact, will differ according
Hmm.
to the size of the vision and what you're trying to accomplish. So I think that distinguishes leaders. And the problem I see with what you're putting into the table is that um, I, people might be increasingly self-centered and thinking for themselves because it's a shortcut to making the $1,000,000,
Hmm.
which might be a possible course of action, what might be
Could
possible.
be.
It's an easy way to get rich.
Yes, but I think this is something we will be observing
Hmm.
quite a lot uh, in the next few years.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily bad. It's just going to shape
Yes.
some things from in a different way, which is also interesting.
Hmm.
To but see, like leadership and work experience is not static.
Hmm.
It's changes, and
Yes.
it's how to say, it's linked to the real life.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, you can't have, problems outside and then everything at work, I mean, like business-wise,
Yes.
functioning normal. We're seeing it more and more in the past few years. There are wars and stuff like that, which is quite
Hmm.
a disruption for. And
Hmm.
a lot of good examples of leadership are coming from these experiences, and also bad examples for leadership.
I feel because we discussed about even generation gaps and even Gen Z, I think the basics transcend any
Hmm.
generation. If you see the person in front of you and you acknowledge that you're seeing the person in front of you and you treat them respectfully, this might not be reciprocated, unfortunately. There are situations like that. But again, if you are um, so let's say you're disrespected. If you're the adult in the mix, and I'm referring to the transactional
Hmm.
analysis model, the parent, the adult, and the child.
Yeah.
If you're still the adult in the situation, you can still earn the respect of the other person. So respect is um, goes across any generation. So it transcends generational gaps. It transcends differences, politics, ethnic diversity, nationalities. If you're respectful to the human that they are in front of you, it transcends anything. So to me, that's leadership.
Yeah,
Um,
quite a lot. A big chunk of being kind and respectful
yes,
to people.
yes,
It's interesting. We have to remind people to be kind
yes.
at leadership level.
Interesting, very interesting question. I've never,
Mhm.
I wasn't.
I was talking about systems.
Yes.
You can't isolate the bigger system from the smaller systems because it affects families, it affects jobs, it affects business. So, I mean, it shows how old I am, but I grew up during the Iron Curtain and the Cold War, and this was my first like teenage years, and life was very different. And that's not to brag about, it's just a different thing. And then we've seen a very like long time of stability, and now shifts are happening again, which I think it's normal in life, and that affects how we lead, how we coach, the topics. For example, during COVID, people are coming for coaching with more human reasons for coaching rather than I would like to become a better leader, I would like to have good time management. So this was a big shift. And this, I'm just curious what people are going to start coming for coaching with kind of topics now.
That's always that's always the expectation of new things, because if you've been coaching people for quite a while, you can start seeing trends over the years as well. So that must be something interesting.
A lot of coaches during COVID felt uncomfortable because they're used to, we need to improve performance, make you better sales.
Trust as well, because people were working
Yes.
remotely as well. So
Yes. And then human challenges started coming. So you coach the human and then the leader. That was an instinct shift during coaching. And I've worked with some people from the US, which had a lot of division, like between
Okay.
elections and stuff like that, and that came into coaching as well. Yeah, I had coaching clients the day after the elections who were so upset
Okay.
with what happened, one way or another. And when the Ukraine war started, the next morning I had a client who was Russian, works abroad, is
Okay.
no longer attached to the country, who was crying in the session because she said, "I'm not guilty for this." So you see how interesting how the social and
And
economic,
cultural
yes,
comes into the mix.
yes. I think these are new experiences we have as coaches.
Do you feel that you need to be, so let's say if you're coaching someone from the US, do you need to be aware of the culture that they're coming from in order to coach them?
You
Or
have to be respectful towards the culture. But there are a lot of mythology about the American culture. From my experience, it's fine. And a trend I see: Americans seek European coaches
Okay.
to gain a different perspective.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is also beautiful because um, there are no borders physical,
Yes, yes.
and you can still contribute to someone's life being far away. I mean, I've had clients in Africa and in Asia, which is nice. And then the cultural aspect comes quite a lot. Again, what makes us similar is the bottom line
Yes.
of
Yeah.
Maslow.
Ultimately, we're human.
Yes.
So it's interesting. So I didn't have, so most of my coaching experience are local. I yes, I had foreigners, but residing locally.
Yep.
So it's something that I haven't coached online very much. If I have the option, I'd rather meet with the person. Might be a little bit of a traditional way, but I think that if you're meeting the person in person, there is a lot more to the connection is a little bit more profound, I would say.
Depends.
Um, I do lecturing online, so I'm comfortable with the online setting. I think it takes a little bit longer online. Again, it depends on the people.
Yes.
It depends on the people, because if I look back on the lectures, it depends on the class as well, the energy that the class brings with it, and same goes with the individual.
Yeah, I mean, I was very skeptical about online.
Yeah.
I like the mixture of both. And it gives you access to kind of clients that
Mhm.
you wouldn't be able to source locally.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And I think as a coach, it enriches your experience
Yes,
as well
it
if
does.
you're in touch with other
Hmm.
cultures.
And the learning you're getting from work with clients is
Mm-hmm.
enormous.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I learn more from a client than they learn from me.
Wow.
Yes, depends what you're going to do
Yes,
with this,
definitely.
like how you sit
Mm-hmm.
and interact with the client and what you do with this own knowledge. Because they bring things to sessions that first you never encountered, and the way how they solve problems gives you ideas
Yes, it's a
as
little
well.
bit different.
Yes.
And I think it makes you appreciate the context as well because the solution A might work in situation A, but not
Hmm.
in situation B, even though it is good. So whatever, let's say you tried an initiative in your current place of work, if you change jobs in 5 years' time, for example, and you try out the same thing, it might not work because of the cultural differences of the organization as well.
We've seen many people that were hired because they did something with one organization and they
Yes,
go and do the same thing with another
yes,
and it doesn't
it
work.
doesn't work.
Yeah, because it's a different context.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Again, we're nearing the end, I think,
Wow.
of our episode. I think we won't talk for around a little bit more than an hour. I've been keeping tabs on the time, but I'm going to let me mix the questions
Ah,
because
what's the price?
recently a pizza for two.
Okay, let me just mix them myself. Okay.
I would kindly ask you to read it out loud and to answer it.
What's the best piece of advice you can give to someone starting their personal growth journey? Don't listen and don't take advices from other people. um, I'm gonna be more serious now. I mean, what I think I will give, not as an advice, but as an idea of someone who are starting their personal growth journey is first find why you're growing and what you want to grow. Because growth for the sake of growth, sometimes it's just waste of resources. Going
Mhm.
back to a plant doesn't grow for the sake of growing.
Yeah,
They grow with a reason.
yeah.
And find what your reason is and what's the best way of achieving this reason. But be mindful that it rarely goes as it's planned. So if you have the goal in your mind and where you want to go and grow, work with what you have now
Mhm.
rather than what's going to happen in 10 years' time. Because you might have an idea today where you want to grow and stick to this place and not see other areas that you grow
Mhm.
in your journey.
Thank you, Dragan.
I hope
Oh,
no one is going to take it, but
well, the less serious response was actually quite valid in my opinion,
yes,
and
yes.
Eva obviously
And
the serious
you
one.
know what I notice, and I quickly, when we focus on very rigid goals and we don't achieve them,
Yeah.
one reason or another, we tend to not see what other areas of growth we had in the journey. Very similar to your reflective journals, because
Mhm.
if you don't stop and think, okay, this week I didn't achieve this,
Yeah.
but then, oh my God, I slept more hours, I did this, I
Yes.
spent more time with my family, I have a new idea about something. So this is all growth.
Yes.
So people tend to be very rigid with
Yes.
what they want to achieve.
With that, you see also the things that you didn't accomplish in a way that the things that you missed or the things that you had to miss
Mm-hmm.
in order to achieve that. So, for example, yesterday I wrote that last week I didn't work. Well, I'm updating my website at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't work on my website because I had some admin to do. For
Yes.
example, I needed to catch up on my admin and other situations that came up. But it made me reflect. Okay, I didn't manage to do this, even though it's quite of a higher priority, but because other things were more important and more urgent, I would say. So it makes you think, okay, now with that information, what can I do to plug it in this week, for example? And
Mm-hmm.
you're always aligning your trajectory with that. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you're always going in the direction that you would like to go.
Mm. One of the challenges we have nowadays is that people don't stop and think.
Hmm. Very true.
Yeah, it's just the
And what I know is that very few people know how to think and to ask themselves the right questions as
mm.
well.
we're good in solving problems. So, let me solve this problem, and we
Yeah.
consider this as thinking.
Yes.
But actually, just to sit and think,
Yes.
whatever comes to your mind, and then if you put it on a piece of paper, whatever works for you, it's also very helpful. But we're finding this is waste of time.
Hmm. And it's not because it saves your. It saves your. I was going to jokingly say it saves your soul, but in a way, um, it does because it gives you clarity.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a reason why you did that and why you're feeling in this way for the reasons why you're doing what you're doing, why you're feeling in this way, why you answered that question in that sort of way. Asking these questions, for me, it's interesting, but I think these questions being reflective with ourselves, I think that's a very important skill to develop over time.
And it doesn't take a lot of time.
Yes. Initially, it might. Might.
Yeah, until you train
Well,
yourself. But the misconception is I need to spend a lot of time thinking.
the meditation aspect, an hour of
Whatever,
meditation,
yes. I mean, 10 minutes is better than nothing.
definitely.
Mm. So,
Dragan, thank you for
oh,
being here.
thank you.
You're welcome. It's been an interesting conversation. I really enjoyed the question that you asked me. Very few guests ask me questions, so I always enjoy it and welcome any questions.
That's what
that
I
make
tell
you
my
think.
guests. Ask me questions.
Yes. So thank you for practicing what you preach as well. Hopefully, it was a pleasant experience for you.
Wonderful. And I knew we are going to talk about a lot of intelligent things, so I put my specs, just
Okay.
to have the look. I usually don't look like that, but and they're not fake, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I need them more and more. But very very grateful for this experience, and I will look forward for other means of collaboration or meetings that we can
Definitely.
have in the future.
Thank you, Dragan.
You're welcome.